All right, here we are on Sportsbook Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, March 23rd. Big game breakdown going to be the East Regional Madison Square Garden. And we'll give you the longest odds on the Sweet 16 teams that are left. That'll be fun to go over. Most outstanding player props and the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Thanks to a viewer who pointed this out on Twitter. He took a horrible beat with the Celtics Pacers game under. Pacers fouled down 10 with 40 seconds. Let's start there, Teddy.
Well, I mean, it was a really rough finish if you had the under in that ballgame. Closed 208.5, finished 209. All right, they're at 199 with less than a minute game, and it's supposed to be a no-sweat finish. It's not a foul situation, but the Pacers foul. Horford hits 2 free throws, and then Paul George drains a 3, cuts the lead to 10. And then you had one of those like an auto foul situation where, oh, he hit the 3, let's foul. And Avery Bradley hits them both, and it's still sitting on 206. The Celtics take a 24-second violation. They're just running out the clock just long enough for Miles Turner. Not anybody in the end. Miles Turner drained the 3 to send it over the total. Not that he never hits them, but it's the first one he hit in March, and he was 0 of 9 from downtown this month prior to that make. Yeah, that's a tough beat for Celtics Pacers underbetters.
Don't look now. The Celtics are a game behind the Cavs for the 1 seed in the East. Oh!
Yeah. We'll talk about the Cavs in just a minute. That's something that we pointed out on Sportsbit yesterday that hopefully some of our viewers were able to make some money off of.
Tough beat the Magic +5. Charlotte trailed most of the way, never led by more than 5 until the final 2 minutes.
Yeah, and then Evan Fournier, who hit 1 3-pointer in the final minute, but he missed his last 3-point try and left just enough time on the clock to foul Kemba Walker one last time. Walker hit them both. Magic lost by 7. They were +5 for the ballgame.
Bad bets. The Pistons took money on the road against the Bulls, +1.5. Went off a 2-point favorite. We read those quotes yesterday. They were definitely cause for concern. Van Gundy laughing when they lost to the Nets, saying this is a wake-up call. It's like, come on, we're 71 games in. The Bulls blow them out.
Oh, yeah, they did. And the Pistons, Van Gundy tried to shake things up. Ish Smith back at the starting point guard position. His first start since December 2nd, replacing Reggie Jackson. That move didn't work out particularly well. The Pistons allowed 59% shooting versus a team coming off an overtime loss. No Robin Lopez, no Cristiano Felicio for the Bulls. And that was at least part of the money coming in on Detroit. But Mirotic, it's 28 points last night, made it look really easy against a Pistons defense that did not show up.
And what could be a likely first-round playoff matchup, Wizards took money bet up to 8 at home against Atlanta. Still only 2 ATS covers in their last dozen games after that 23-7 ATS run. John Wall, another poor game shooting.
Yeah, Wall 6 of 21 from the floor, 1 of 6 from three-point range. I'm telling you, he's gassed. Wall top 10 in minutes. The Wizards had that incredible run where Wall and Beal were at the top of their game throughout January and into February. That's not the case here in the dog days of March. And I'm telling you look at the Wizards' schedule, it doesn't get any easier for Washington moving forward.
No, bad for the books. You want to talk about a team on a mission. Has this happened before? An 8 seed is going to New York City. Bakersfield does it again on the road.
And it's not, I was trying to think of an appropriate reference because it's not the same as a 16 seed making it to the Final Four. But it's not that far off either. I don't recall an 8 seed. You remember another 8 seed making it to the Final Four in the NIT?
No, but I really haven't followed the NIT. But this is staggering what they've done.
Absolutely. They go on the road, and it's the 3rd straight game. The Roadrunners led by at least 16 at halftime. They were blowing these teams out on the road. At Cal, at Colorado State, at Texas Arlington. Impressive. Rod Barnes, a head coach who gets no love. Man, he turns things around in an almost impossible place to do it. Kudos for Cal State Bakersfield. Bad news for the books, who took an absolute beating on that ball game.
They may have been dangerous if they got in the tournament. Remember, they were up. They had to play that 4 overtime thriller in the WAC semis. Then they were up 10 against New Mexico State in the championship game before they ran out of gas. What a job they've done. And here it is, the Nuggets, bad for the books. +4 at home against the Cavs. Bet down to +2. 126 points. The Cavs defense is a joke. The Cavs defense protecting the rim has been a disgrace. And guess where the Joker and the Nuggets did a lot of their work? In the paint, ran them out.
Yeah, they sure did. Denver, 126 points, 53% shooting. And this isn't something that is new or different. We talked about it on Sportsbook yesterday. The Cavs defense right now is playing at some pretty ugly levels. LeBron James last night, 34 minutes of action. He was minus 30 during his court time. That's one for the record books. You don't see that from LeBron very often.
Third worst of his career.
Yeah. But great sign for the Nuggets. Wilson Chandler returned. He looked 100%. 18 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and played 40 minutes. Denver doesn't look like they're going to be a pushover in that first round.
And 3 weeks left in the season. 5 teams under already cashed. If you had them under, this from William Hill, the T-Wolves, the Knicks, the Blazers, the Pistons, and the Clippers. Congrats there, as you already have a winner. And off the top of my head, I know the Rockets have already gone over, but I don't know how many teams have gone over already in the association. So still, with 10, 11 games left, 5 teams have cashed the under. And good, go ahead.
Yeah, we got a note here. The fact is, the Blazers in competition for a playoff spot. The Pistons in competition for a playoff spot. The Clippers already in the playoffs. So we're not just talking about bottom feeders that have gone under the total. It's not just the Knicks. Mostly, it's been teams that were either pretty good last year or teams that were expected to be pretty good this year, like Minnesota, that have failed to live up to their lofty expectations.
And it might be the first time I'm saying this. Good job by Roger Goodell. At the owners' meetings, he said, we have to do something about all the commercial breaks. He said, it drives me crazy when you go touchdown commercial, kickoff commercial combo. We call those double ups. They occurred 27% of the time on kickoffs last season. Still too high for us. They want to eliminate double ups and cut down on commercials.
Yeah, well, no. They're just cutting down on commercial breaks. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a standard pattern now of 4 commercial breaks per quarter of 2 minutes and 20 seconds, as opposed to 5 or 6 commercial breaks at 1 minute and 50 seconds each. So what you're going to see is longer commercial breaks, but fewer commercial breaks. That is something that you and I both agree on, Pauly. Good move for the NFL. It shows they're taking the ratings decline from last year very, very seriously. The NFL, a little bit nervous right now.
How about the East Regional Madison Square Garden? They couldn't get Duke or Villanova, but we'll get to Wisconsin and Florida and Baylor and South Carolina coming up, and the longest odds offered on the Sweet 16 teams, and some props to go over before we get out of here on Sportsbook. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on Sportsbook, Betting Insight today. Get ready for Google Hangout tonight, 8 o'clock Pacific. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. This is the late game Friday night, Madison Square Garden. Wisconsin and Florida, Gators 2, 132 the total. First of all, we know this was BS going in. There's no way Wisconsin is an 8 seed. At one point during the season, they were in the top 5, and they were in the preseason top 10. Sweet 16 pressure, a big deal to many players, not Koenig and not Nigel Hayes. They'll be among a few teammates in modern era that have made this round 4 straight seasons. Look at this with the Koenig, Hayes, Turney era. Flash that graphic straight up, 13-3. And then you see the ATS 11-4-1, and yes, identical 381 minutes. And Teddy, how close did they come to making history when you see the close losses?
Yeah, it's kind of insane. I mean, this is something that I started going back and doing the work on this. I'm like, oh my God, what could have been for Wisconsin? All right, how close is this team coming to making history again? This is their 4th straight Sweet 16. All right, 2016, last year, they lose 61-56 to Notre Dame. They led that game 56-53 with 26 seconds remaining. 2015, they made it to the national championship. They lost 68-63 to Duke. They led that game 58-56. It was a 12-5 closeout for the Blue Devils. 2014, so they were right there to win the title. 2014, the national semifinals, they lose 74-73 to Kentucky. Remember that Aaron Harrison three-pointer with 5 seconds left? You got to remember that shot. They lost 74-73 in that ballgame. So it's not a stretch to think this team, instead of being 13-3 straight up, they could have gone 16-0 in those games. They're not going to be bothered by the pressure of this round of the tournament, but they will be bothered by that Florida Gators defense.
Well, a big reason for the tourney run is the tough team to prepare for. What is arguably the best possible preparation? Play Virginia, the team closest in style. Teams like Wisconsin and Virginia want to take advantage of defensive mistakes and work deep into the shot clock to force them. So what happens when they go up against a D that has athleticism and patience? Florida 65, Virginia 39. Cavs were 16 of 54 and 1 of 15 from 3. They didn't get any easy looks. In the Florida D game plan, the starting lineup for Virginia scored 16 points in 110 floor minutes, 6 of 28 shooting. Florida number 3 in the nation in defense.
Yeah, and again, you look at the keys for that Florida defense. Well, they have the size to impact opposing shots. They're number 12 in effective field goal percentage. They have the quickness to pressure the ball. They're number 32 in turnover, percentage of possessions that end in a turnover. Number 27 in percentage of possessions that end in a steal. And when we talk about seconds per shot, they force opponents. They're number 314 in the country in terms of pace. So Wisconsin's going to have to work deep into the clock to beat Florida, but the Badgers certainly more capable of most teams when it comes to working deep into the shot clock to take good shots. They're comfortable running their half-court offense, even when it takes 29 seconds for them to get off a good look.
They've also been in 2 close games so far. Florida, 2 blowouts. Now, who's the go-to scorer for them in a close game? 3 and 7 straight up in games decided by 6 points or less. How much does that concern you?
Well, that's been the biggest issue about Florida. When we talked about Florida, I remember talking about them right here on Sportsman in January and in February. We said this team has Final Four potential if they had a closeout scorer. They don't. In a short point spread game, that's definitely a concern for the Gators. Then again, when we've seen Wisconsin have all of these chances against elite teams and come up short in those chances as well, maybe some of that gets mitigated.
All right, game number 2, live on sportsbookreview.com. The early game, 4:30 Pacific Friday night in the Garden. South Carolina, Baylor. Bears 3.5, 135 the total. South Carolina has attitude under Frank Martin. Go hard, never quit. Only 7 of 35 shooting in the first half against Duke, but they didn't lose contact. The D played hard the full game and swallowed up one of the top offenses in the nation. They forced 18 Duke turnovers, and a lot of them led to easy points. Forced 17 turnovers from Marquette in the first round, a team that played solid defense and low-scoring games. Look at the points they put up. They had 65 second-half points against Duke. I know a lot of that was fouls late, but they dropped 90 on Marquette in the first-round win.
Yeah, and again, you shoot 7 of 35 in the first half against Duke, and you win the game. That speaks to 2 things. 1, it speaks to your ability to play defense. 2, it speaks to the character of your team. Because when you shoot 20% for a half against Duke, you ain't supposed to win that game. Here's what Coach K said after the loss to the Gamecocks. Quote, "It was actually the most physical game we played in all year. We got wore down." That's nothing new for South Carolina. This team was number 4 in the nation in total defense, number 16 in effective field goal percentage, number 4 in percentage of possessions that end in turnovers, and number 19 in steal percentage. So what do we have? Major matchup issue. Here's a South Carolina defense that is number 4 in the country in creating turnovers, and a Baylor offense that's number 305 in turning the ball over. They turn the ball over all the time. The question here, can the Bears get off enough shots before they turn the ball over? If not, they got no business as chalk in this ballgame.
Well, this is also key, too, because you're talking about Cinderella. I mean, I know they were a 7 seed, but they weren't expected to go to the Sweet 16. Now they win 2 games. They go back to campus. Everyone's pumping their tires and telling them how good they are. So we'll see how they respond on Friday. Baylor was at one point the number 1 team in the country. So now they expect to win this game and make a deep run. Now, how do you think Motley and the boys will handle a physical South Carolina team?
Well, I mean, if Baylor can handle the press, they can win the other elements of the ballgame. South Carolina's going to out-tough most teams, but it's not really easy to out-tough Jonathan Motley. He's a monster. 17.3 points, just shy of 10 rebounds a game. He could finish with a double-double for the season if he rebounds well for the rest of the tournament. And, so that is one thing that Baylor could do, feed it inside to Motley, obviously. But when we talk about Baylor handling that press, South Carolina has to handle Baylor's defense as well. And we saw, you talked about the good shooting they had last weekend. The Gamecocks, if they're not creating turnovers, they're going to have to run a half-court offense. And their half-court offense, let's be real, last weekend was decent. Well, it was pretty good. For the season, some pretty ugly numbers. Look at the comparison between the South Carolina offense and the Baylor defense. Flash that graphic right now. A significant mismatch, all in favor of Baylor, if South Carolina can't force the turnovers and get out in transition.
Up next, the deep dive, Back to the Future. A look at the longest odds that were offered during the season on the Sweet 16 teams, most outstanding player props, and the play of the day on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrap it up on Sportsbit, Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. Deep dive, let's go back to the future. William Hill US on Twitter, at William Hill US on Twitter. A look at the longest odds they offered during the season and date last available to Sweet 16 teams. Arizona flashed this 50-1 on December 18th. Baylor 150-1 in middle of November. Butler 250-1 at the end of November. The Gators 150-1 in late January. How about that? The Zags, you had to really shop early for that one because they were, I think, preseason top 15, but 60-1 in May. Kansas 12-1 late December. As you talked about, Teddy, Kentucky 10-1 March 10th, but you know what they were before the season? And they were 12-1 as they made the Sweet 16, which how odd is that?
Yeah, well, that's something we talked about earlier in the week, where the Wildcats had a fairly unique situation in which they were favored. Their odds were worse when they reached around the 16 or the Sweet 16 than they were at various points during the regular season. But when you look at the chalk here, your Kansas 12-1, your Kentucky 10-1, your North Carolina 20-1. Those are the best odds you could have gotten at any point. If you'd been, right there at the right day and you knew exactly when to do it. You're not talking about huge payouts on the chalk, but on the other hand, some of these long shots. Look at Michigan, at 500-1. Yeah, look at Xavier. They were 500-1 right before the tournament. The odds on Wisconsin right before the tournament at 75-1. Again, a team you talked about as being a top 5 team earlier in the year. I'm not a big proponent of the future book, but looking at this graphic, you see, if you're a savvy shopper, if you're constantly, week after week going through and, hey, where are the odds changed and where's the value at right now, you can build a pretty good looking portfolio with your future book odds. This example just from William Hill, if you're shopping at multiple books, you're going to get even more variance than what you see right here. So it's certainly an interesting exercise to look back at the end of the season and say, man, that would have been a great bet. Oh, I wish I'd have done that one. But really, with the exception of the chalky teams, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, everyone in this tournament has been a long shot at some point during the season.
Yeah, and I know we learned about this with Leicester City, but across the pond, you can make an offer and they can buy you out with a ticket. Here in Las Vegas, there's a company called Prop Swap, where you just put your ticket there online, online and on the website. You could have South Carolina 300-1 that you grabbed a couple weeks ago and say, hey, listen, they're 4 wins away. I don't think they're going to win it, but I'd like to cash this ticket out, and someone can buy the ticket from you if you need the money or don't think it's going to win and you want to walk out of there with something. That's available too. Or Wisconsin as well at 75-1 right when the tournament started.
Sure, and again, Prop Swap, they're not an advertiser for us. We know the guys. I respect the hell out of what they're doing because conceptually, first of all, they put a ton of work into it. And secondly, is that conceptually, as a bettor, you like the idea, hey, let somebody buy my South Carolina ticket at 300-1 and I'll lock in a profit right here. So it's something worth mentioning here on Sportsbit.
All right, the latest, most outstanding player prop odds from Sportsbook AG.
We got to jump in right here. Stop. Why do they call it most outstanding? Why can't they just call it MVP instead of MOP? Why? Why, Pauly?
I don't know. I don't care.
I know why. Because it's the NCAA and they do everything stupid. Go on.
Is anything on there you like?
Of course not. Look, this is an example, and I'm not to point out sportsbook.ag. They're just a sports book and a good one at that and a reputable one at that. So I don't want to point them out, but why on earth would you take someone on Kansas at plus 750 or 800 when you could bet Kansas at plus 500 to win it. You don't have to worry about who does better. You understand? But it's not unique to Sportsbook AG. When you're talking about situations where you have 30 guys listed or 20 guys listed, the house takeout is significant. So I can understand, hey, I think Arizona's going to win. Well, okay, now who are you going to pick? You can get Arizona 8-1 to win the title. Why do you want Trier at 8-1 to win MOP when he may have to battle with one of his teammates to win that award if they end up winning? So, again, interesting to consider, interesting to look at, not a bet that I would actually make.
No, I'm with you on that one. All right, Google Hangout tonight, 8 o'clock Pacific. We will react to the early games that'll be final, and then we're probably at halftime or getting close with the late games as well. So be a part of that coming up at 8 o'clock Pacific. We're looking forward to that. We do it every Thursday here. Sportsbet Betting Insight today. Money time, play of the day. Hey, streaks ended this year. Cubs win the World Series. Cavs win the NBA title. Arizona to get to the Final Four. How about Arizona to win it all too? Sean Miller, let's get him into the Final Four. As we talked about earlier in the week, I mean, this is set up beautifully for Arizona. They have terrific fans. They travel well. They'll buy up most of the tickets in San Jose. They're 7.5-point favorites against Xavier. They get the rematch against Gonzaga, or they'll be favored against West Virginia. And who knows? They might have to go Xavier, West Virginia, and then maybe a South Carolina or even a Wisconsin to go to the championship game. And where's the Final Four being played this year? Glendale. There'll be a home game for them, too. They'll have all those tickets as well. Play of the day, 8-1, Arizona to win it all. Excellent job. Excellent show. A lot of fun. Check you out the Google Hangout. We're back Friday as well. Sportsbet, Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.